Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Shatea Williams, and I am the Outreach Coordinator with Moms in Motion. And welcome to our live series here at Moms in Motion called Voices in Motion, where we spotlight individuals and organizations making a difference in the lives of people with disabilities and their families. So I'm super excited because today we have Chelsea Taylor, and she's the Program Manager at Brain Injury Solutions. And Chelsea was born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia, and has been with the organization for nearly 10 years. She began as a child and adolescent case manager and now is leading the programs that support individuals and families impacted by brain injury. So, again, thank you, Chelsea, for joining us today, and I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you all. We have worked with Moms in Motion with a number of our survivors and their families. So, very excited for this collaboration. So, I will go ahead and get in to things. So, feel free to be interactive and put things in the chat. I'm happy to answer all of your questions as well. So today I hope to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do at Brain Injury Solutions. And then I will try not to bore you too much with talking about Brain Injury 101, just a little bit about the brain and how we are all different. And then I will try and save time for questions. So I appreciate that introduction into a little bit about me. Again, I am born and raised here. I went to Roanoke College. There is a beautiful picture of my little family. I have two boys, Owen and Teddy, and then my husband is a local teacher here as well. So I have a great appreciation for a lot of our teachers and coaches. So my mom there in the middle is a big inspiration for who for a lot of the work that I do here. So she actually passed away when I was 2 from a brain aneurysm. And so I think that in the medical field, aneurysm recovery is come very far. And so I think that that's a huge part of my inspiration and the work that I get to do here with our survivors. I also have a horse and some kitties at home as well. And so they definitely keep me going. We love to be pretty active outside this weather. I don't know what it's doing. For you guys, it may have been a little bit different, but for us here this week, it was 80s one day and then snow in the next. So
Yeah.
Virginia definitely keeps us guessing for sure. So our mission here at Brain Injury Solutions, we try to help children and adults. So we serve both from infancy all the way up to 100 plus, improve the quality of their lives, and then reintegrate into family and community. So our goal is that when you think brain injury, we hope that you think about solutions. I love that we were started by a mother and father. So their son, Jason, that's pictured there, he had his brain injury doing what children do, just outside playing. And they realized that at the time that he had his accident, that they felt that they got really good care in the hospital. But then when they got home, and maybe some Moms in Motion folks out there can relate to this as well. When they got home is where they felt that they were kind of floundering and they didn't know what to do. They felt very fortunate that they could pay for the support if only it was available to them and in their area. And so that's what they set out to do. And so at that time, we were called the Jason Foundation. Jason unfortunately passed away after a couple of years of living with his injury there. But they continued to grow leaps and bounds. We began serving active case management and then expanded that to our child and adolescent program. And then we continued to add programs from there. And I'll get into all of our many programs in further detail a little bit later on. But we ran into a really great problem for a small nonprofit to have in 2023. We outgrew our name. So we were previously called Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia. But then, as you can see from our pretty map here, we covered more than Southwest Virginia. So we go as far east as now Lunenburg, Mecklenburg, and Brunswick, as far north as Allegheny, and then all the way to the Tennessee border. And we have a small but mighty team that helps us accomplish that. So our only brick and mortar is here in Roanoke, and we do have some Roanoke staff with us. But we mostly have satellite case managers that live and serve the area that they cover in their catchment area. And so we're very proud of our small but mighty team here. We're also very proud of this map as well. So this is going into our second year of the state of Virginia no longer having any white spaces available. And so what that means is that if you live in the state of Virginia, you have a corresponding brain injury provider. It may not be Brain Injury Solutions. We have the biggest footprint, but we are covered by a brain injury provider in Virginia now, and that is due to advocacy. So right now, our representatives, our congressmen, our senators are meeting on the Hill, as they say, and they are talking about the budget for next year. And it is due to advocacy efforts of Brain Injury Association of Virginia and all of the agencies pictured. They make up what's called the Brain Injury Alliance. Due to our efforts in recent years, this is why our state is now covered. We were able to get more funding, get more attention to our survivors and their caregivers, and we were able to explain why our survivors need this additional support. So not all of these providers necessarily provide the same service. Maybe their case management looks a little different. Maybe they don't all serve adults. Maybe they offer some specialized housing support or some day support options, things like that. Maybe they don't all provide, for example, a behavioral health therapist like what we do, but at least our survivors are now covered in the state of Virginia. And that's something that we're very, very proud of. And if you feel comfortable using your voice, all it takes is expressing just one sentence of why this matters to you. You can go to our social media and go to our website and reach out to your representatives. Brain Injury Association of Virginia has made it very, very easy. All you do is go to their website and you put in your address, and it automatically links that to your corresponding representatives. And then we are asking for strengthening our safety net funding, as well as supporting our survivors and our staff. Those are the two asks that we are asking for this year. And so you can just talk about why this is important to you. You can just say, housing support is important in our area for our survivors, things like that. So we would greatly appreciate that support. So how do you apply? We have tried very, very hard to remove as much red tape as we can. Anyone can apply or make a referral. You can simply contact us. We can help you with the application. We can mail it to you. The easiest way is probably through our website. But it's two parts. So the first page is just a little bit about you, your brain injury, and what you need help with or who you're filling it out for. And then the second part is a consent to exchange information. And that is how we would request the medical records that substantiate the brain injury. And once we have those two pieces of paper, we meet once a month. That intake review board meets on the third Thursday of every month to review new applicants. And we do prioritize them based on their needs, if they're homeless, for example, if they have no support, things of that nature. And so, again, that's on the third Thursday of every month. Sometimes, for a lot of our survivors, it may be difficult for them to complete an application or to get those medical records. So we can also help with that. We do ask that you have some type of diagnosis of a brain injury. And if you don't, I'll get to kind of a back door into our agency in just a minute. Reside within our service area. And if not, again, we can connect you to one of our partners that is outside of our catchment area and be working towards legal status. So again, sometimes it's difficult to get those medical records right. So here's an example of one way that your doctors or your Moms in Motion case manager or your mental health clinician can help with that. If you just want to get them to fill this out, that would connect us to you. So this is one way that we're trying to remove that red tape. And here's another. So sometimes for our folks that have traumatic brain injuries, maybe, for example, if you're a domestic violence survivor or where you got your brain injury, that medical hospital no longer has those records, or if it was in another state or you didn't go to the hospital, you can do this screening. It's just a couple of questions, and that information would also send you right to us if you live within our catchment area. So this is another way that you can access our services without those crystal clear medical records. But when in doubt, please, we always tell folks to call us, and I'm happy to staff those cases with them. So a little bit more about our programs. Of course, case management is our biggest. We also have online programs. We have support groups across our catchment area. Lots of different things for you to get involved in, but the biggest thing is that they are all free of charge. And I'll get into each of these a little bit later on in different slides as well. So some commonly asked questions that we get. Is there a cost for our services? So hopefully you've heard me say it several times. No, our services are free. We're very, very proud of that. So we receive a lot of our funding from the state, about 80%. And then the rest are private donations or grants, fundraisers, things of that nature. And that is how we are able to provide free services for our survivors, something we're very proud of. Typically, our case managers see folks on about a monthly basis. Sometimes they see them once a quarter if they become a little bit more stable. And then how long can you receive our service? So because our services are free and we are a nonprofit, we have a lot less red tape than maybe some other things that are billing insurance. We can provide services very long term. And we do bill Medicaid for a very small portion of targeted case management, but that is just a handful of our folks. The rest of them, again, it's completely free, and it's the same services across the board, whether we are billing for just that handful of folks or not. So as long as you have needs and goals with us, we can continue to provide you wonderful services. A lot of our folks just don't have a safety net or a support system that can help them with things. And so we're happy to provide long-term community-based case management. So I'll get into some of these definitions a little bit later on too, but when I say brain injury, I want to make sure that you're understanding what I'm talking about. So there are two sides of the coin here. There's the traumatic and there's the non-traumatic side. So I think a lot of folks are more familiar with TBIs, right? We're big into the alphabet soup here. So a traumatic brain injury, that is an injury that impacts function, and it can be caused from external injuries like a bump or a blow to the head. And so that are things like falls, assaults, motor vehicle accidents, sports-related injuries, concussions. That is a brain injury. That's a mild form of a TBI. Those are all examples of that. And then the non-traumatic side of the house. So those are things that are considered acquired, that is a result from internal factors such as lacks of oxygen, toxic exposures, tumors, cancers, things like that. And those are strokes, being deprived of oxygen again, aneurysms, brain tumors, infections, diseases. Those would all be examples of that. And I think that when we are able to define it a little bit more clearly, sometimes that helps us to understand a little bit more about what we're kind of talking about here. I think it's also helpful to understand what we don't do. So because folks hear our name, oftentimes they think that we're a medical facility or that we're doctors or clinicians. We don't provide any medical or rehab care. We cannot provide any medication management, but we can help folks navigate medication management tools or coping skills. Like we can provide them like a medical box to help their medication stay organized, or a lock box to help keep their meds safe from children in the home, for example. We cannot provide any mental health supports other than we do have a behavioral health therapist. And once you have case management with us, we do have a free program that is open just this month that we're starting that. So that is an option now. However, our case managers do not provide any mental health support. We cannot directly provide transportation, but we can help folks navigate transportation solutions. And I know that especially in this area, sometimes the solutions are few and far between, but we are pretty creative in our case management, the ways in which we can help folks. So whether that's radar transportation or, transportation through someone's insurance, things of that nature, we can help them with that. Because we are a nonprofit, we do have to be the last resort for financial needs, but we have been able to help folks financially. We can apply for grants to help them with things. For example, we can help them with home mods, navigate that solution to keep them home safer, reduce fall risk. I think it's really important to mention that once you have one brain injury, your risk of a second is 3 times greater. And then once you have 2 brain injuries, your risk of a third goes up exponentially. So I think the more that we can reduce someone's fall risk in the home environment within their home to make it safer for them, that's really, really helpful. So case management, what does that look like? So it's free. It is community-based. We can meet them where they are, whether that's in their home, in our office here in Roanoke, whether that's going to their doctor's appointments with them. We're very, very person-centered and client-choiced. We're very goal-focused. All of our clients have their own individualized service plan that has their own needs and goals on it. We provide advocacy. We are advocates first and foremost. We really focus on coordination of services for their whole support team. So we will also provide brain injury education to their caregiver and to their whole caregiver support team. Again, we can be long-term, and we love doing things like this, providing brain injury to folks in the community as well. Some of our areas, very few of them do have a wait list, but again, we do prioritize folks with the needs that are coming in based on their application and things of that nature. So I do always like to mention that. So here are some typically needed services that a lot of our folks come in with. Sometimes they need help being connected to medical and therapy services. Sometimes they need durable medical equipment after their brain injury. A lot of times they need help connecting to specialists in their area. Mental health and brain injury go hand in hand as well. So we are very fortunate that we do have a free licensed mental health professional with us that can help our survivors. She is available in the Roanoke office. We also have a location in Franklin County that we can use, and then virtual as well. Sometimes they need to be connected to substance abuse treatment. Substance abuse and brain injury go hand in hand. Sometimes one exacerbates the other. A lot of times our folks need help navigating very complex social systems. And what I mean by that is navigating DSS, Social Security. How do I even do that? It can be very difficult to fill out paperwork, remembering to attend appointments when you have a brain injury. So that's something that we can help them with, especially coordinating services with Medicare and Medicaid. I think we're very successful in helping folks navigate that as well. Assistive technology can benefit a lot of our folks as well. Again, home modifications, keeping their home environment safe, navigating those transportation solutions. I'll get into this a little bit later for our services that we provide with our kiddos, but educational and vocational support. We do a wonderful job with our pediatric population doing that. We want to make sure that they are the best students that they can be. And also that transition to adulthood. I know that our Moms in Motion folks know this as well. And so I think that that's something that we really focus on with our kiddos and our young adults too. Recreation and leisure activities. So something that happens to a lot of our survivors is they become very socially isolated after their brain injury. They look different. They sound different. And so sometimes that can be very isolating in itself. We want to make sure that they are still reintegrating into family and community, right? That's our mission. So whether that's getting out there and going to a support group of folks that are going through the same things, whether that's volunteering at their local animal shelter, whether that's going to therapeutic horseback riding lessons. We want to make sure that they are being productive members in their community in whatever way that looks like to them. Cognitive behavioral retraining, that is definitely very helpful with a lot of our folks. And our online CLICK program, which I'll talk about in the next slide, is very, very helpful for a lot of our folks. So CLICK, again, the alphabet soup, right? Community Living Connection. This program was originally developed for veterans because, again, we found that a lot of our folks become very isolated after their injury. So this is an internet-based video conferencing platform where survivors and caregivers can come together with a trained facilitator, kind of like how we're doing right now. They do social support, brain injury education, and cognitive skill building. CLICK is the only program that I know of personally that throughout the pandemic, it continued to just rumble right along without a hitch. Sessions are usually held twice a week, sometimes once a month too. They have a CLICK caregiver support group as well. And it's for a couple of hours. They have done so many different versions of CLICK, and it continues to grow leaps and bounds. They've done yoga, mindfulness, Tai Chi, art, music, budgeting, dance, book club. This summer they did a gardening session that was super cool. CLICK is also in the local detention center. It's also been in local homeless shelters and local group homes. We've been able to bring CLICK to a number of various populations and seen so many benefits from this. Folks that have participated in CLICK but then moved on to other states are still maintaining those friendships with their CLICK buddies, and we love to see that. Another wonderful program that I wish we had so much more of because it is so needed. It's a program very similar to Life Skills. So we call it C-TRIP for short, but it stands for Community Support Services. And it's kind of like case management on steroids. So it's one-on-one, very intensive, but for a short amount of time. It's very goal driven, and it's designed to help brain injury survivors relearn some very basic functions and kind of compensatory strategies to help with some of these very basic skill sets. Really just be as independent as possible in their home. So some things that our C-TRIP specialist has been able to help do, and she's right there in the blue shirt, Miss Michelle. She is an absolute saint. She's really helped a lot of folks learn to navigate the city bus to build some independent, relearn how to use the computer, relearn how to cook again. She's helped a lot of folks be safer in the kitchen, which is hugely empowering for a lot of our folks. Even one of our clients that she used to be a professional baker, and then after her brain injury, she just didn't feel safe in the kitchen in order to use the skill and that hobby, right? That was something she not only did for her career, but also she loved to do it. But she was finding herself burning things or not remembering to turn off the stove, things like that. And Michelle was able to help her learn how to do that again safely. She was able to help folks with different alert or reminding tools to help them take their medication correctly. Helped a lot of folks with their money to budget and do different savings plan and things of that nature. So seems very small to us, but can be very empowering for a lot of our individuals. Another one of our awesome programs, PALS, providing a link for a survivor. So we love PALS so much that we even expanded it to another program that we also call Peers. So PALS is connecting a survivor to a volunteer, and they just develop a natural friendship and mentorship. Usually they hang out about once a month, so that's a pretty low commitment for the volunteer as well, but the volunteer truly gets just as much out of it as the survivor does. You don't have to transport the survivor. You don't have to pay for things. It's a wonderful, wonderful program for everyone involved. You can do arts and crafts if that's something that you're interested in. The person that oversees this, Melissa, really does try to match the volunteer and the survivor based on their similar likes and interests. And then the peers version of it is when we're pairing two different survivors together as well. So please, if you're interested in volunteering, please let me know afterwards or just email Miss Melissa with our agency. So you've heard me talk a little bit about this. This is our behavioral health therapy program, and this is our licensed LCSW, Miss Michelle. So we just recently started this. This has just been our first month of doing this, again, to current case management clients. She is able to provide in-person and virtual mental health counseling for our survivors, and it's free of charge. We know that this is going to be so beneficial because so many of our folks need it, not only to help them navigate maybe the trauma of their brain injury, but just other mental health conditions. A lot of times, if you had mental health conditions before your brain injury, sometimes they get exacerbated after their injury. So we're very, very excited to have Miss Michelle on our team. I also talked about support groups. So if our case manager either runs a support group in their area or they attend one regularly. So there is one throughout our catchment area. We would love to see you all at them. Please find more information on our website or social media. I think that support groups are so invaluable for you to be able to attend a group and not just hear, just Chelsea say, yes, that's really tough what you're struggling with, but also hear someone that's been there and struggling with it too say that, I think is really empowering. So these are some numbers that we're just really proud of. I think, yes, we're a small team, but we've done some pretty impressive things. So usually we serve anywhere from 400 to 500 folks a year. I think we're already on target to beat this this year as well. Lots of community engagement activities, lots of new referrals, lots of support groups, lots of veterans. Most of our folks are very, very satisfied, and most of them are reaching their goals in case management. So again, just very proud of our numbers here. So I'll get into a little bit of our success stories, because I think that anytime that you can show, what our survivors are doing on the daily basis and what our staff are doing is also very empowering. So this is one of our survivors, and she was really struggling with something that a lot of our aging survivors struggle with. They needed a safer, more accessible home. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but we're sort of in a housing crisis here in this area. And this client was really having a hard time advocating for herself. She has aphasia, so that affects her speech. And she was really struggling with advocating for herself to her landlord. She was constantly having issues with her current apartment. And so her case manager was able to provide that advocacy, even taking it to the state level, and then finding her safe and affordable housing in her area. Now, it took several months, but we were able to do this with a lot of help from our community partners that are listed here. And so this was a huge win, and she was very excited to move in, and has been doing very well and really thriving in a place instead of moving into a home, which is what she did not want. She knows that may be coming down the road, but this was a huge success for her. Another one of our clients, we'll call him George. He was a young adult and obtained his brain injury actually overseas in a car accident. Prior to his injury, he struggled with ADHD that really exacerbated after his injury, also exacerbating some mental health. He really needed help with some home organization. We were able to refer him to our C-TRIP program for that. He struggled with a lot of executive functioning, so that frontal lobe was really affected in his injury, and some interpersonal relationships as well. We were able to help him go back to work, and he was able to go back to work full time. We did help connect him to some mental health supports in his area that accepted his insurance, because sometimes that's half the battle, right? We also helped him with some holiday assistance for him and his family to help take the heat off of that during the holiday season, and some tax resources. Okay, so a little bit about our pediatric services. So I talked a little bit about this, but I think that what sets the kiddos apart is sometimes these developmental processes and effects, you may not see them until later on in their development, right? So I mentioned my two boys. So they're 6 and 4. So right now, I'm kind of essentially still their frontal lobe, right? I'm telling them what to eat, when to get dressed, all of these things. So for some of these kiddos, the effects of their injury, you tend to not see huge effects of it until later on when they're being asked to do more of that executive functioning type skills. Sometimes some of our folks need help with that walk and talk recovery. A lot of times the inability to maintain skills and new learning is tough, or it just differs as their same age peers. I think this is really helpful when we can get in there and go into these IEP meetings, these individualized education plan meetings, and tell the school, look, this is how little Johnny is different from his peers. I know that he may look like he's fully recovered, but he's not. He's not the same student as he was. That transition to adulthood, again, is very, very important. It may not look like a 4-year university. Could it look like vocational skills? Could it look like volunteering? Do we need some employment training? Things like that. So I think that our child and adolescent services are very, very family based, and we're very, very proud of that. Let's see if this video will play. Just holler at me if you can't hear the sound.
Families like Sherry Weinberger and her daughter Macy, a seemingly healthy young girl until the age of 6, when she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. A surgery in 2011 removed most of the tumor, but she was left with a traumatic brain injury.
Brain Injury Services has attended the individualized education plan, which is through the school, her plan for the upcoming year. She has been granted funds for camps like Camp Easter Seals that gives her the chance to get away, to be with other special needs people. They found grants to help her to go to Healing Strides, to do therapeutic riding. It's scary. Without Brain Injury Services, we would be floundering.
Families.
Okay. So I think Macy's mom talked a little bit about that transition piece too. So Macy is now at a level where they are thinking about that. What does life look like for her after high school, right? We don't just want her sitting at home. We want her still getting out in the community. And I think that some of these partners here on the screen really help us with that. So DARS, the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services, they really help get our folks with disabilities employment, Medicaid waiver services, right? Moms in Motion as well. Lots of community-based programs. Also neuropsych. So a lot of times that evaluation is like a golden ticket for a lot of our folks. That evaluation is done by a neuropsychologist, and it does a lot of things. It talks about not only some medical things, but also family history. It also does some IQ testing, and it gives you very good recommendations afterwards on what would be good steps moving forward. Do you need some vision therapy? Do you need some more speech therapy? Do you need some mental health? So I really can't recommend that evaluation enough. Here is one of our local heroes. So this is a client turned board member. So Stephen said that after his brain injuries, and Stephen actually was working full time. He was very high up at a local university. He had lots of initials after his name, but he said that he faced a number of challenges that were wide ranging. The bottom line is that he felt very lost and he didn't feel valuable anymore. He felt very worthless and had no idea how to fix the situation. Once he became a client, we helped him through the steps that he couldn't take to help claw his way back to some normalcy. His case manager, Bridget, helped him set goals and held him accountable. She was extremely compassionate and helped him move from a situation that he felt like he was aimlessly wandering to a place where he was moving forward towards his goals and feeling good about himself. So I mentioned he has lots of initials after his name, but after his brain injuries, he had multiple. He had 2 back-to-back. He was then reading at a 4th grade level. And he is another success story for vision therapy. I was able to watch a video of one of his vision testing that was done, and it tracked his eye movement while he was trying to read a paragraph. And honestly, I don't even know how he was reading at a fourth grade level, because it was making me like seasick just trying to watch. He would start up here and then he would go down here. And so he did a lot of work with vision therapy, and that really helped him. He was able to start swimming again, which was one of his hobbies, and he was able to start driving during the daytime. So small steps really was what made the difference with him. He is also a huge success story for one of our partnerships that we have with Virginia Tech. He was able to connect us and work with one of their engineer professors. So this professor was really world renowned for her work, but she realized that as she got further along in her career, she had been doing this for years and years, making equipment for people with disabilities before she actually met the people that she was making this equipment for. And she was like, I think we're doing our students a real disservice who are trying to get into this field where they're taking so much of, these classes and all of this, but we're not ever connecting them with these survivors. And so that's what we're able to do. And our survivors love it, because to them, it feels like they're also going to school, right? Because they're the experts in their field. They know exactly what it's like to be someone living with a disability and facing those challenges every day. So we're very, very excited about that partnership. And I think a lot of wonderful things have come from that, and a lot of very good discussion. So I won't spend a ton of time here, but again, I do think it's helpful to define what a brain injury is, because a lot of folks don't know that it is a concussion. A lot of folks don't know that, for example, you don't even have to have hit your head to still acquire a brain injury. A lot of times during our motor vehicle accidents, sometimes that whiplash effect, that coup contra coup, is enough to still cause an injury. What would you all say? Well, and I don't know if we'll be able to see it in the chat here, but one of the leading causes for sports-related TBIs is actually horseback riding. So a lot of times I get, when I ask that question, football or soccer, but it's actually horseback riding. And I think that helmet safety is really important here. We've started a partnership with Roanoke County Schools where we will be doing some brain injury education and some helmet safety awareness. So we're very excited about that. I love to shout out our first responders when I talk about this slide, because every minute truly does count. And so with oxygen, our brain damage can occur within about 4 to 6 minutes, and it can become irreversible after 8 to 10 minutes. I did a training recently with the health department, and I was told that EMS, usually they can get to us in the city within about 5 minutes. For Roanoke County, sometimes it's 15 to 20 minutes. But shout out to our first responders for all that they do. So here is a nice little graphic of the leading causes of TBIs. So a lot of times folks don't know that it's actually falls is the leading cause. Sometimes they'll say accidents in a car or being struck in the head, things like that, but it's actually falls. So again, the more that we can reduce someone's fall risk, the safer that we can make them. Brain injury is often called the silent epidemic, or an invisible injury, because what you see is not always what's really going on, right? Sometimes there are a lot of things going on under the surface there. And these are things that we are educating our legislators about as well. Every 9 seconds, someone is sustaining a brain injury. It's really not just an event. And if you leave this training with nothing else, please hear that. It causes chronic physical, cognitive, and mental health issues. It's really not just a throw some pills and it'll get better situation. I think the CDC and Medicare and Medicaid is doing a lot better at recognizing it as a chronic health condition. It's not something like someone walking in here with a broken arm. we would say, oh, maybe they fell, they're going to have a cast for a couple of weeks, and then maybe a brace, and then maybe some PT, and they're going to be better. That's not brain injury. This really can be something much more debilitating than that. So I've talked a lot about the overlap of brain injury with other populations. And so here is a graphic that demonstrates that. The overlap of folks in the criminal justice system. And I would say that these numbers are even maybe not as more representative as it should be. Folks that are unhoused, intimate partner violence, definitely lots of overlap because of the area in which their abuse is, and also the strangulation piece as well. So the parts of the brain, and I won't go into a lot of detail here because this could be a whole separate talk, but I also will highlight brain school. So on Monday, Virginia Tech, Carilion, and the Fralin Institute just had their brain school. They do it every year during March, Brain Injury Awareness Month. It's open to the public. I encourage you to attend. Sometimes it's 1 day, sometimes it's 3 days, but they have world-renowned speakers that come. And again, it's free, and they usually have really good brain food there as well. We set up a table, but the frontal lobe, that's the powerhouse of the brain, right? All executive functioning happens there. You're organizing, abstract reasoning, impulse control, all of it happens there, okay? I also think it's really important to mention your brain is not fully developed. Executive functioning, that frontal lobe is not fully online until you're 25. So a lot of times, and I have to remind myself constantly with my kids, it's not fully developed until so much later in life. Why the voting age and we can go off to war and we can drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes isn't until much later and not until your brain's developed? I don't know. But it's not fully online until at least 25. The temporal lobe, easy to remember because it's right above your ear, and that controls your receptive language and your memory here. Okay, so sometimes if we have damage here, that can cause lower frustration tolerance, agitation, depression, and persistent talking. So that perseveration of things. The parietal lobe, right behind the frontal lobe there, that is responsible, that has our sensory motor cortex. Okay, so sometimes issues there causes problems with emotions and behavior. The occipital lobe, easy to remember because it's at the back of the skull. So sometimes when you hit the back of your head, you see stars because that controls your vision. And then the cerebellum, very, very important there. It's in the blue. It controls your balance and coordination. And then the brain stem, also very, very important. It controls all basic life functioning, right? It connects the brain to the spinal cord. So it monitors everything, breathing and heart rate, consciousness. Very, very important. So here are some deficits that we will see sometimes after your brain is injured. Sometimes they can look like cognitive or physical changes, and I think that those usually folks recognize those easily. Lots of issues with memory. Sometimes, you're going to see issues with sleep disturbances, lots of complaints of headaches, some dizziness, and then some seizures as well. Now, seizure in itself is not considered a brain injury. However, sometimes folks that have very violent seizures, of course, they will be damaging their brain through, violently hitting their head and things of that nature. So if you have a seizure diagnosis and you're wanting to access our services, I still encourage you to reach out. Emotion and behavior changes. Here is where we get a lot of our complaints. So problems here, lots of personality changes can occur. Impulsivity, really struggling with being able to see the cause and effect of your behavior. Poor self-awareness. I think that because a lot of these changes as well, the statistic comes into play here that it can take someone with a brain injury 2 to 3 times more energy to process information. And this is also where we love to talk about the importance of wearing your helmets and make sure that they're fitting correctly. You use the 2v1 method. So you need to have just 2 fingers where it fits right here. So it's just barely above your eyebrows, just 1 finger under the throat strap. And then you need to make a V with the straps at your ears. We are outside at Go Outside Festival, Go Fest every year, and we hand out free helmets to kiddos. So please come to see us for that. I think that this slide is really informative as well. So sometimes folks will have a hard time struggling with the right words or recognizing that there's been a problem some way in the communication. They're not going to take a lot of these social cues. They're not going to interpret your body language in the way that a lot of us would. They may be poor listeners or difficulty seeing things from your perspective. You need to really recognize that you may have to speak to them a little bit differently. They may not recognize dangerous situations, again, not seeing that cause and effect. So some things that you can do to help with that. Ask the individual to repeat what you have said, right? Do that reflective listening is really helpful. Allow extra time to respond. Avoid arguing. That's much easier said than done, right? Try to rephrase the problem. Break it down into small parts. Writing things down is very helpful. Use calendars. Use reminder tools. Speak softly and slowly. I still definitely have a problem with this. Use gestures and nonverbal communication to aid understanding. So sometimes, especially in conversations where you see someone's getting off task, maybe just pointing back to the sheet that you're trying to get them to sign instead of just, oh, we're getting off task again, we need to do this. Sometimes that's a little bit more helpful. Encourage all efforts to communicate. Alert the person to any changes in topic of the conversation and use very specific questions. I think that those are very helpful. I really love these graphics. I think a lot of times our folks essentially go through the stages of grief when there's been an injury here. They mourn their previous self, right? We're helping them navigate their new normal. And the caregiver does as well, right? They're remembering who their loved one was before this period. Sometimes they will remember this, event almost like the death of a loved one. I think that it's always important to remember the process of recovery isn't just you're getting better at a little plateau, you're getting better at a little plateau. It can get messy, but every little bit of progress should be celebrated. I know the autistic community has a saying, if you've seen one person with autism, you've seen one person with autism. And I love that. I think the same is true for brain injury because every person is different, every brain is different. So just because you've seen one person with a stroke does not mean that, the other person with a stroke is going to be the same. It's all depending upon who they were before their brain injury and what part of their brain was injured. I always want to leave you with hope. So our brains are neuroplastic. That's how our brain recovers and can improve themselves. So recovery is still possible. The statistics will tell you that most of your recovery will be within that first year or two after your injury. But please don't let that be what you focus on. So take Macy in that video, for example. So, her parents were told very scary things, like she would never walk and talk again, things like that. But you saw her walking. But when I first met her almost a decade ago, she was a wheelchair user. And that was a decade after her first brain injury. And so she was still able to make progress and is still able to make progress with her mobility every day. So I do think that is where we should focus on, that our brains are neuroplastic and recovery is still always possible. So I mentioned some of our fundraising efforts, and so I would be remiss to not mention our Jogging for Your Noggin is coming up April 25th. We would love to see you all there. It's at 9 a.m. on the Greenway, and then there is going to be a music festival afterwards at the Dog Bowl at Black Dog Salvage there. With Rock Haven. So feel free to run, rehydrate, and then rock with us afterwards. Feel free to volunteer. We would love to see you. There is the 5K, but then also the 1 mile memorial walk as well, which that's what my kids will be doing. You won't see us doing a lot of running, but we'll be walking there. So feel free to come and hang out with us. And I would love to answer whatever questions you may have. So please feel free to holler those out or do them in the chat, or you can also email me as well.
Thank you, Chelsea. And while you were talking, I was dropping tons of information in the chat for you. I was trying to keep up with everything you're saying and find all the links so that our viewers can have all the resources.
Thank you.
No problem. So, do any of our viewers have any questions? I found your presentation super informative. I definitely loved all the stats that you left us with and all the information. And I definitely love how you touched on all your programs. And I think it's awesome that you guys' services are free.
Yes. You don't hear that a lot anymore these days. So we are very, very proud of that for sure.
So I have it dropped the Brain Injury Solutions interest form. So if any of our viewers know of anyone who may need brain injury solution services, please feel free to email them using their email on their website or fill out that form.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. And again, Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing both your professional experience and your personal connection to your work. And again, conversations like this raise awareness about brain injury, especially since it's Brain Injury Awareness Month.
That's right.
And what you all do is important. And I love how you guys support the community and all the resources that you listed. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in for this edition of Voices in Motion. If you have any questions or any concerns, please do not hesitate to contact Chelsea. You can find her information. Did you want to drop your email in the chat, or would you like for me to just leave the interest form?
Yeah, sure. You can leave the interest form, or it's I think I'm still just in the studio chat, but I'll send it right here.
All right, got it. So if you guys have any questions or concerns, please email Chelsea and she'll be more than happy to help you.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.